hand, we'll be able to hear us.
Oh, this is what.
I see.
Okay.
We're green.
There we go, all right.
Awesome. Did you need this?
Does that mean we'll be
I
able
was just
to?
putting it here to share.
Yeah.
Yeah, just. I was gonna try to find the,
Getting
Oh,
this
pity.
Okay. Thanks for coming out, everybody.
No, dear.
Happy,
Well, I've got an old
Almost
one.
November.
David gave me a new one.
Oh, okay.
But it's only old because I'm not on
Thursday
it.
in the pouring rain, I think.
That's what it said, yeah.
Yeah, it should be fun for everyone. Has everybody had a chance to look at the minutes from August?
Yes.
And do we have a motion to approve the
I make
minutes?
a motion that we approve
Do we
the
have a
August
second?
minutes.
All in favor?
Yep.
Great. Minutes have been approved. We're gonna go on to Dave and his manager notes.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for coming. Thank you, Beth. So I'm just going to touch on a few things, and if you want me to talk in more detail, stop me. But otherwise, I'm just going to roll along so I don't take up too much of the meeting. The first thing I'm going to say, I don't know how many of you folks know this, but we lost a good friend in Paul Weintraub.
Oh, knew he was ill.
Paul Weintraub,
Yes.
to many folks, including myself, kind of was the Opera House and kind of was CCT. He was here from before the restoration, back when CCT was one of the only entities using the space. I mean, it was kind of almost like their place. And so he was one of the lighting operators. I think he helped sort of design the system that was in. He directed plays, he acted in plays. He was just a sort of a constant presence here, a wonderful, warm-hearted, generous guy. And his health had been failing, and sadly, he passed. So we're sending out an emailing with a bit of a memorial message, and we're also going to host, whenever his family gets to it, whatever kind of gathering they want to have.
Great.
So, good guy, will be missed. I just want to touch now on the financials, which I sent out, and there's a few copies. The short news is, things are good. Right now, we're about halfway through the year. Our net for rentals is a little over $10,000. Our net for Opera House productions is just under $6,000.
Oh, that's for the birds.
Well, there's more. And the Community Arts Fund is basically down almost $90 by design, because it doesn't really take money in. It funds Free Films and Blue Cafe. Just as a comparison, at the same time last year, our rental net was a little higher, it was $11,000, but our Opera House production net was negative $213. Thank you, Birds of Chicago, and a couple of other events. And our Blue Cafe net was negative $274. So, all in all, I think we're doing better.
Yes.
We're a little lower on rentals, which we can't control, and we had some big ones last year. We had 2 Senator King events in 1 month, and it was just a little unusual. But things are good, and we are healthy.
I can just, the reason I said it's for the birds, that was a joke, because most of the income is from Roger McGuinn.
Oh, I'm sorry.
From the birds.
Yes, yes. Yeah, Roger
Versus
McGuinn.
last year's negative from the Birds of Chicago.
Right. Roger McGuinn netted us a little over $5,000, so that was a good
Yeah.
night for us. Yep. And so I was just going to touch on some of the shows that I don't know if we've had a chance to talk about, because they sort of happened since our last meeting, I think. So one was Roger McGuinn, which was the Windjammer Festival concert, which was sold out. People loved it. He loved it. It was just a wonderful night. Then there was one night in Memphis, sold well. People loved it. They loved it. Financially not so good for us, just because it was a really expensive show to put on. But a great night all the same.
But you came pretty close to breaking even.
Yeah, not bad. I mean, it fulfilled our mission of bringing good stuff here and serving a particular audience, so I'm not disappointed in that. Then we had a Blue Cafe with Mariana Filippi, which was jammed, and was a wonderful night. I'm not going to talk about Glenn Jenks because we're going to get to that. Bob Marley, once again, we had another sellout with him, and he is sort of one of a kind in that sense. He sold out 3 shows in one day in August, and then came back in October and sold out another one. And then the last show we just had was Hiroya Sakamoto in the Blue Cafe. And I don't know if anybody wants to chime in, but wow, that was a pretty great night.
Good.
Yes.
I was sad I had to leave early, but.
Yeah, I saw that.
I mean, maybe for the first time had to actually turn people away. We were so full. There was a line down the block when we opened, and the place just filled immediately.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great.
Which was kind of amazing.
So is that somebody, because he had wanted to play the big theater.
He did. He had reached out to me months ago saying, coming through the area, I love to play the Opera House. And I get a lot of those. And sometimes people have never seen the Opera House. They're just looking at a map or a list of venues. And so I did, as I often do, and I looked at some videos and I checked him out. And in this case, I just thought, wow, this guy is the real thing. He's just a really talented guy. But because he was not a known person, I was worried that to put him in the big room on a big stage would not be the intimate setting that would suit him the best. And even if we sold a decent amount of tickets, it would feel at very best half full, and maybe not even that. So I kind of pitched him the Blue Cafe thing and paid him a little more than we typically do, and got, with Beth's help, a local inn to give him a room. And so the deal was, listen, you're going by anyway, stop in, it's a wonderful experience, you'll have a beautiful inn to stay in, you know. And he said yes, which was great. And so it turned out to work great, because it was an intimate setting, and it was, I think, the best way to experience him, sort of up
definitely.
close.
What did he think
Definitely.
of the
He
night?
loved it, he wants to come back. And
In
so.
that particular setting again?
Well, the way we left it was, I said, let's keep talking, and I don't know what setting it would be.
Okay.
But I would, you know, if there was a way to get him in the theater proper as a part of a bigger bill or something,
Right.
I would be open to it, because I just thought he was just excellent in a way that was rare. And aside from his skill and his artfulness of playing, just his whole vibe was really pretty special. I thought the way he wove stories in, and the thing he did with the looping was super artful. And so, you know, I just thought he was a sort of an exceptional performer. So I'd love to get him back. Yeah, that was just a great night all around. So, and I think the last thing I'm going to say, oh no, I'm sorry, 2 more things. So just so everyone knows, we had a show scheduled for this Saturday, Justin McKinney, comedian. That show has been rescheduled to January. At the request of he and his management. So we have put the word out, and we're just going to move it, and I think it'll suit him better. January is a quiet time. People start getting a little cabin fevery,
Yeah.
want to come out and do something lighthearted. So he's now on the 31st of January,
that's
which I think will actually suit him better.
Ask a question? Sure. In the finances you have, under Blue Cafe, there's a $68 income on the Bob Marley show. I'm just wondering where that came from.
Did I
Was that in the wrong
misplace that?
place?
Oh, no, I know what that is. That's water sales.
Oh, okay.
You know, we tried that experiment because it didn't make sense to have the bar, because it's a general admission show, so everyone makes a beeline to get a good seat and doesn't want to leave it. And there was no intermission. So, you know, Josh would have been lonely. So we didn't want to do that, but we wanted to offer something. So, and we did this a couple of times. We bought up a bunch of these, which we got for, really cheap because we get them kind of wholesale. I don't know, I think we paid like 30 cents a piece or something. Sold them for $1, and made a few dollars. We just set up sort of self-serve stations at the back of the auditorium where they were in tubs on ice with a big sign saying, proceeds support the Community Arts Fund and honor system. And so it suited the need, it worked pretty well, made a few dollars. So that's what that number is. Good eye. And the last thing I will say, and it's just to throw it out there, we don't have to decide tonight, but this came from Peter Dembski, who couldn't be with us tonight. And it's occurred to me in the past, and it's the notion of the schedule of these meetings. And the question is it necessary for them to be monthly? Is bi-monthly better? And I don't know. It really has to do with, I enjoy them. It's great to get feedback. I know these days a lot of information gets traded through email. So the informational part can be done. So,
Is it part of the charter? Is there a reason that we have to meet once a month?
I don't believe so.
Okay.
I think it's sort of historic habit. I'll check to be, because
You take it out.
I could be wrong,
My
but
2 cents.
sure.
I like it monthly because it gets people together, and when you do every other month, you just start to lose that connectivity of the group of people. And I think, because I've seen that with other committees, when people get together, they talk, they discuss, ideas come up, and that's what you miss out on.
True, yeah, I see your point. I guess I was sort of thinking of it from your folks' point of view, how it fits in with your life, and,
Well, except for the summer, when things get really heated up for a lot of people, once a month is really
Not
not that
a burden.
challenging a burden. Maybe take August off or something like
Yep.
that,
yeah, which I think used to happen in the
July
past.
off, right?
I think this summer
Or
very
July,
often was-
either one would probably feel like a breather for people, but,
And probably like December.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
right. Because that would be an awkward time for
Everybody's
people
busy.
traveling.
It
and-
always falls between Christmas and New Year's, and, who wants to go to a meeting?
Well, maybe that's a good interim step to say, let's plan for, take a break in the summer, take a break near the holidays. Does that sound acceptable? And for now, let it just kind of roll along?
Yeah, it's easier about once a month is, we can all just put it on our calendar and
True.
you switch it to every other month.
Yeah, it's less consistent in our heads.
Harder to remember.
And this, for November, Thanksgiving's late, so it'll be Thanksgiving week if we do it the last week of November.
Oh, that's a really good point.
Oh, right.
We could certainly move it earlier by a week, and I don't know if that would be simpler for folks. What Beth is saying is, it's scheduled on the 26th of November, and of course, Thanksgiving is.
Why don't we do it on the 5th of December and then not do the December meeting?
that's
In keeping with our
Right.
two off,
The 5th or the 3rd?
whatever, yeah, 3rd, sorry.
Tuesday's the third. And I just have
Makes
to,
sense.
yeah.
Yeah,
Next meeting, December 3rd, yes, all in favor?
Kids' events.
yeah. All right.
At usual time.
And then I'm pretty sure I will not be here because that will be a select board meeting as well. So you can talk about me.
Well, but then we won't be here either.
Plan your surprise
We can't be
party.
in this room then,
This is
right?
true.
So should we,
Should we push it back a week? Push it forward a
You
week?
could do the 10th.
Well, what about November 19th, and then we're done until January? Is there a downside to that, or
No, other than it's 3 weeks from now, it's
is
just
it too
quick.
soon?
And I'm not here. And that, I know that makes a huge difference.
The 10th is,
Yeah, I see what you mean.
December 10th doesn't seem like it's going to creep in too much on the holidays.
December
Let's do the
10th
10th.
works for me.
yeah, me too.
Yeah,
Okay.
and that's a Tuesday, right?
Yeah.
Is that better for you, Mark? That's good?
I think so. I'm just gonna check and make sure nobody else is in here.
So that would be our next meeting,
Right.
right?
What, December the 10th?
December the 10th.
And then we'll pick up monthly in January.
Yep.
Works for me.
Okay, jolly good.
That's it for me, for manager's notes. Thank you.
December 10th, the Historic Resources Committee, oh, that's at the library, though, so.
Hey, you
that's
got
okay.
lucky.
And the design team is here at 4 o'clock, but that's fine, because they'll be done, so if that works.
Great, thank you.
All right, Renee, you're gonna give us the rundown.
Well, all right, yeah. I do have a report on Glenn Jenks' Ragtime Review. The large audience were very enthusiastic, although a lot of them on my side of the aisle did not return after intermission, possibly because the show was overlong. It ended at 10:30.
Oh, my gosh. Yeah, I would have
We will have to come
done that.
We will have to come into line with the Strand to request the audience not to use phones during the show.
Yeah.
Another distraction was the opening and closing of the door next to the stage. A blackout curtain there would block the light.
Why was that door being opened and closed?
I
Do we
just,
know?
I can't
Were there
imagine.
people coming in and out into the audience?
I think so.
Not really, they were.
Performers?
Well,
Well,
on
actually, I
one
know what one of
occasion.
them was.
On one occasion, but then the door would open and they'd sort of look out
Yeah.
and then, go back in again. It was a darn nuisance, it really
Huh.
was.
There was two young boys at one point, and I kind of went after them. And I was doing my lecture
Taser.
thing and
Jolly
saying,
good.
it's okay if you want to come out and sit, but when you open, it's really distracting. And out of nowhere came one of the dance moms, and she said, "We got a dancer down, we're trying to find an adult," so there was, one of the dancers was having some sort of distress, I think she
Okay.
was sick. And so they were all trying to find her mother. So that's why they were coming in and out, so,
A large notice on the inside of the door, do not open this door during the show.
Unless someone is ill.
If the curtain was there, then it wouldn't be a
That's
problem,
right.
right?
sadly, we can't put a curtain there.
Fire
It's
exit.
a fire code thing.
Exit,
Fire
yeah.
exit,
It's
so
a
you
fire
can't,
exit.
that would be a
Oh,
hindrance.
yes, of course, of course. All right, well then a big notice.
Yep.
Just,
Or
just
a
to
bouncer.
remind people, unless it's really
And maybe
crucial.
instructions,
volunteering?
instructions to the parents or something that night saying, whoever's sort of wrangling.
Yes, but put the notice anyway, and then just a little reminder.
Yeah, go around the
Yes.
building and talk to the event managers, right?
Oh,
Or
right.
open it real quick and scoot out real fast, don't.
It-
No, you can't do that.
Oftentimes when you have
Get
the
that light,
dance.
you see, into the darkness of the theatre.
There's not much that can be done. Anyway, please,
Okay.
go on.
The stage, dressed in black, was rather depressing and funereal in feeling, which made the audience appear ghost-like. It was a relief to all when Juniper's coloured backcloths appeared behind the talented dance group. Only then did it feel like a happy musical variety show. But why didn't the singers have microphones? Especially John Adams, the baritone. We could only hear his high notes. Kudos to our own Dagny Ernest for her very entertaining segment. A true artist and singer. She didn't need a mic.
Not surprising.
So altogether, a funny and entertaining evening, and here's to next year. On another subject entirely, the Blue Cafe is a great success, I hear from all the attendees. We have a lot of beautifully framed portraits of the celebrities who have performed at the Camden Opera House. They would be perfect to adorn the walls of the third floor, which is a very bare space. Perhaps some of us could get together one afternoon or evening and hang this interesting collection. Submitted respectfully by Renee Hutchin.
Thank you very much.
I'm so sorry I didn't give you details about the performers.
Oh, no, that's good.
Perfect, that was wonderful.
That was just right.
That was just a great overview, thank you.
Welcome.
I will just add one little informational note. Actually, maybe two informational notes. Had you ever been to these back in the day when Glenn did them?
When who did them?
When Glenn Jenks used to do his ragtime
Oh,
review?
no.
Oh, okay, I didn't know if you were.
No, no, my
A
first.
little bit of history, and this is before my time, but he was a local musician and considered something of a ragtime expert, like nationally. I mean, he was a big deal, and he would do a show every year in October. So Aaron Robinson, who was the sort of the MC and host,
Aha.
and I think had been a student of Glenn's or had worked with him, and this was kind of his brainchild. He wanted to start it up again
Yep.
in Glenn Jenks's honor to kind of recreate this review he used to do. And his hope is to make it an annual thing, which I think would be great, because it was really, as you said, well-attended,
Oh,
well-loved.
absolutely. Yes.
And as far as things like the stage setting and use of microphones and so forth, that was Aaron's call. He didn't want microphones. And actually, and the reason he didn't was he wanted it to be like an old style, the way the room was built,
Right.
just musicians. And it made it much simpler to change scenes really fast, because you didn't have to bring microphones off and on, and. So that was his call.
Uh-huh.
So we were honoring.
Did you use microphones?
They had a couple of wireless handheld ones that they used off and on, but,
It's been so long since I went to one. I
Yeah.
don't remember.
oh, I'm sorry, what was your question? Did,
Did they use mics?
Did,
back in
when
the
Glenn
day?
originally
Oh, I don't
did
think
it,
so.
so he was staying true to the.
he was trying to be
the
true to the
style
original,
of
right,
Glenn.
kind of
Yeah.
recreate, yeah. But it was wonderful, and people loved it.
Absolutely, they did.
All right, cushions.
All right.
It's all cushions out there, right? Just-
Cushions. I've done a lot of research, found,
Can we just back up a little and remind anyone who maybe wasn't here when the conversation started what you're doing?
Yes.
so the conversation actually started years ago when I was working for the Camden Conference, that those balcony seats are hard on the tushy. And
Theater term.
the, the question came up, Jim Ruddy and I talked about whether or not we could get sponsorship, because there's a number of conferences that need to use a balcony fully, and people are sitting there for long periods of time. So apparently, he and Kim looked into sort of the basic, it's like a stadium cushion. But I went a little further than that, and it's not an inexpensive proposition, but good news is that have recently gotten full support from the Camden Conference Board. They would like to talk with you and I and maybe Emily from SIF. I guess Emily
Okay.
is a new person, about maybe doing a fundraiser. So, these don't have any ties, but I can pass these around. These are samples. These are made by the Maine State Prison Upholstery Shop.
Oh, wow. How long does this last?
So this is,
You know, after sitting on it for a while, does it deplete at all?
no.
Do these
it shouldn't.
particular ones fit the seats, or are these just samples?
These fit the seats. They just need, we're talking about Velcro straps to be able to keep them in place, like
Right.
straps that would, and
How many
Dagny,
seats are in the balcony? I'm sorry.
187.
187.
How much are it
187.
per?
No, seats.
That's how many
There are that many
seats are.
seats.
I think we have a big problem.
It's a big project. I did a lot of fabric research because that's kind of my thing. And the best ones really are, what these are made of, which is, an outdoor fabric, so it's water resistant, stain resistant, easy to
Like a
wipe down.
sunbrella sort of thing?
It is umbrella.
Okay.
The swatching, I can pass these around too. Did some color samples. I did some other swatching of lesser quality swatches, but ultimately, when I talked to Kim at Camden Conference, she said, everybody wants to go with good quality. Which means the sunbrella.
They'll last longer, too.
They'll last longer, they'll be easier to maintain, but all totaled, 187. The Maine State Prison Upholstery Shop gave me a quote of $29.50 a cushion. And then, they have actually a source for sunbrella, and they can give me,
How many are we going to need?
the wholesale, 187.
Well, you'll make 200, you would think, because you're gonna
So we're-
make a few extras.
We're talking
Inevitably,
about
something will happen.
basically $10,000. Which, when I told Kim at Camden Conference, she didn't even blink. She said, no problem between what we think we can come up with donations. She suggested, she loved the idea of the Maine State Prison, for a lot of different reasons, and she suggested doing a very public fundraiser. And so we can talk about that.
Sure.
I know it's a big cost, but like I said, she didn't, and the board also didn't, they just loved the idea. And of course, the conference is the
They're
ones
the
who will
main driver.
largely take advantage of it. So the idea would be to try and get this done, hopefully.
Can I ask some nuts and bolts questions?
Yes.
These two samples, how do they differ? I mean, I see this one has sort of a piping around it.
So this is called welting. It's
Welting.
really a design feature.
Okay. Does it add to the cost at all, or?
It
Yes,
does.
it would.
It does add to the cost. It does not add to the longevity of how long the seat cushion lasts.
Will the seats fold up?
Yes. Dagny and I tried it today.
So in other words,
It would
your
be,
vision for this is that these are kind of installed. They're there all the time.
yeah, it's a Velcro strap, so they could be removed if they needed to be. But yes, they would always be in
Because
place.
Can you imagine having to Velcro those every single show, 187 cushions?
Well, that's the other thing. Apparently, the Camden Conference talked about handing these out.
Right.
And can you imagine like 187 cushions and towers handing them out?
Does that one have a zipper?
I think they both.
Okay, okay.
What's the difference in cost between the two?
He wasn't able to give me a total cost, but it's definitely significantly less.
That one.
Which
one's,
what-
which one's
This one.
$29.50?
Which one's
This
your?
one is.
Oh,
Is it the same fabric on that?
Same fabric.
so to do that one would be,
Plus,
So
there's
if we
less
do-
fabric involved, because you need more fabric to be able to do the welting.
So if we do 200 of them at $6,000, and you're saying with that, it'd be considerably less?
Uh-huh.
Yeah. But ultimately,
I thought she said 10.
Well, 200 times $30 is 6,000, so.
I'll pass this around. This is kind of, I did another price quote with an online company that does custom cushions, and they gave me a total, including the price of the fabric, et cetera, of $50 a cushion, and it still came out to like
No.
just slightly over 10 grand, but that also includes like $1,000 worth of shipping. Whereas the Maine State Prison will deliver right here.
So the 2950, assuming, we'll round up to 30, is the cost that we would pay to whom? Who gets
See,
that?
the Maine State Prison,
Okay, so they would acquire this umbrella material and do all of that, and then this is just their cost to do it?
that's their labor cost.
Okay.
And then what's really nice about that program is that the prisoners then, they get some money personally to buy phone cards, things like that, but more importantly, it goes back into, if they have child support in the rears, it immediately goes back to pay for things like that.
That's nice.
So it's part of the restorative justice program. And I actually have personally been there. Many years ago, I did.
You were in prison?
I wasn't, thank God, but I was there briefly. I was the location and talent coordinator for a season at Maine Media Workshops, and I set up that location. So I actually have a short documentary of the Industries program, which most people know of as the prison showroom, the woodworking part, which is wonderful. But what I didn't realize at the time was that there was also this upholstery shop, and they do excellent work.
Cool.
I love the idea of it.
They're
As a
super
source.
responsive.
I think
It's
it would be easier
local.
to fundraise too.
That's what Kim thought too.
I almost wonder, and I don't know anything about this, but if there's any grant opportunities
Totally.
for this.
Oh, I'm
It's
sure
just,
there
it's
are.
kind of it hits on a couple of different things.
Sure.
We're trying to, improve our historic theater and make it
Yeah.
more comfortable, particularly for our older audiences like Camden Conference, and at the same time, we're helping this program, so.
David, have you heard the expression bums on seats?
I have.
Richard Attenborough, I think, was the one.
Yeah.
So now it'll be on
So
cushions.
now, yeah,
Does the 2950 include the straps?
Yes, it includes, that's the like high mark.
Got it.
Are the straps sewn on that?
Yeah, they'd be
They're like
sewn
a
in.
thing. Yeah.
So the Opera House seats in the balcony are actually wider and shorter, so they would have Velcro seats, and I'll do a proper measurement to be able to wrap it around so that it has enough ease, but the nice thing about the Velcro is easy to take it off if we need to. And Dagny and I checked, and it folds up quite nicely.
Great.
So are all the seats up there the same width? A lot of theaters have
question.
different width seats
That's
in
a
order to
very
make the
good
curves
question.
work, so watch out.
Okay.
Yeah, because there are
I'll check
actually
it out.
some seats where you can't lift up the seat
If it's the,
at all.
the armrest.
the
But if you sit in the
armrest.
back of a theater that has any kind of angle to it and look at the seats, you can see they're wavy.
Are these the selection, this is the selection of materials,
Those are the preferred fabric selection.
color wise?
I was kind of leaning towards the dark red maroon color.
What color are the downstairs seats?
The seats are, the downstairs seats are a reddish,
Right.
not so
Oh,
different from
yes,
these.
yes, that would be perfect.
So there's two schools of thought. Try and match it or don't try to match it. Try and contrast is probably easier.
Well, you
You
wouldn't
don't
need
have to match it
if it's
exactly.
No one's gonna see
upstairs.
it, but I mean,
It's
they're
true.
next to one another.
And red would
True.
be lovely,
Yeah.
yeah,
It
David,
would
I
also look
like
good with,
that.
against the dark wood.
Yeah.
And Kathleen, is it only that you have the specifications from the prison, did you say?
The prison and this other online source,
Because we do-
cushion.com.
We do have a couple of local
I
scene-
did actually
You
reach
did?
out to them.
You did?
Yeah, like
Uh-huh.
Canvas, et cetera, and places like that, and the boating
Probably too big
upholstery
a job
places.
for them.
It's more that they're just higher price point.
Right.
Canvas, et cetera, is, I work in a fabric store in Rockland, so I hear a lot of reviews about different things, and it's kind of touch and go in terms of the
Where is
quality
there
of
a
their
rock-
work.
a fabric store in Rockland? I thought that.
It's right on Main Street,
Really?
On the corner of Lime Rock?
on the corner of Lime Rock.
On the way-
Oh, yes.
On the way to the
yes.
post office.
What's it called?
I don't deal with upholstery fabric per se, but like.
No.
But I did a bunch of research, and I
Yeah.
do know that this is good quality and long-lasting. It's also light fast. Doesn't make a huge difference up there, but, you don't want fading. I know it's a huge investment, but the good news is that Camden Conference seems to be totally behind it. and willing to spearhead some fundraising.
I
well as
imagine
contribute.
they will be our strongest partners in this, and that's fine. Because I know, as you say, they've been talking about this off and on for a long time.
Right.
And
And they want
yeah.
their people to be comfortable.
Sure.
And they actually have people that buy tickets at the Strand because they,
We want to be comfortable.
I have a question. Is it gonna be awkward when an artist comes out on stage and all the people to see them are sitting in the balcony and not downstairs? Sorry, it's
Yes.
just one of those nights.
Well, I would say, great work. I mean, thank you
Yes,
so
thank
much.
you.
Yes, thanks, Catherine.
I'm super impressed with what you've come up with. I would be curious, the frugal part of me, what the price difference is.
Sure.
For me, the welting is lovely, and there's no question that it's a,
nicer looking.
it's nicer. I don't know how important it is. I guess the price difference would
Yeah.
help us
It's
decide.
harder, it's harder to clean these than these. I mean, dust and stuff builds up.
That's true.
Right.
That's a good point.
And honestly, when you're sitting down, are you gonna notice?
No.
No.
And notice that there's a cushion and be grateful.
Right, totally, yeah.
Yeah, I think that design is great. I think they'll be easy to install, easy to wash when we need
It'd be
to.
really easy to clean. And even if like, for instance, somebody spills water, I know that water is the only thing we let in there, you can just wipe it off.
Right, and if someone spills something else because they find a way to get it in, it looks like you could just unzip it, take the cushion out
You
and
can just wipe it off,
put it through a washing machine if you want, or.
Yeah.
or send it off to be cleaned.
No problem.
It's great.
Okay.
Thank you, that's
So that's,
wonderful.
that's great. So what's our next step? I guess, I'd say if you could
So,
find out the price difference, that would
I
help.
will, definitely.
Do you, I guess
Are
we need to
people
look at the seat
interested
dimensions.
in me going forward with this?
Should we make,
Because
can we make a motion about it? Because I totally make a motion that you should go forward with
I realize that.
working with the state prison and the Camden Conference and whoever else wants to chip in and make this happen. I think this is a wonderful.
Yeah,
thing.
certainly, let's take it to the next step. Let's learn a little more and start. If everyone's in favor of the idea of cushions for the balcony, then the next step, I think, is sort of fundraising.
Well, I think you should have
Definitely.
that meeting to discuss with Camden Conference
Sure.
what our responsibility is from the operator's perspective. Also, yeah, we need to know how they plan on doing that, and if it's sort of them
Yeah.
doing an individual fundraiser as Camden Conference or in conjunction with the Opera House. So we need to know how that's going to be marketed and put out there.
Right.
Also,
SIF too, you said? Was
if
it?
SIF's
It
involved.
would be great if we could get SIF involved.
Yeah, so I think that those details definitely need to be hammered out. I think the idea is fantastic, but I think we need to know the logistics of how to proceed financially.
Yeah, definitely.
But as you say, they probably want them for February, so, you know, it's in their best interests to keep working on this with you in
Sure,
a pretty
yeah.
efficient manner, so.
They seem very enthusiastic.
Yeah, good.
And
What's
on,
the timeline for production?
I actually asked the prison upholstery shop, and if we were able to make a decision fairly soon, they have to order the fabric, and it's a lot of fabric. That's the only time clincher, but they definitely think that they could get them done before.
Should we buy them before we fundraise them?
And then try and reimburse ourselves somehow?
Yeah, I mean, does the fundraising have to happen first, is the question.
That's my big question. I feel nervous about, like, because the first thing we're gonna have to do is definitely purchase like 200 plus yards of fabric. The man that I've been dealing with, James
You said
Booth-
we're gonna have to purchase it?
Well,
It'll have to
if,
be purchased.
it would have to be purchased.
And that's
And whether
part
or
of the
not,
cost,
and whether
though,
or not
right?
that's like the Camden Conference decides they want to go ahead and do that, or if we need to wait for fundraising, that's the big
so
question.
does the Maine State Prison purchase the material, or they purchase the material?
Yes.
But they're gonna want a deposit presumably for
They'll want
something this
something.
big, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So, I mean, I think that Two, it's in the Camden Conference's best interest to help us out on that, in that respect also, potentially.
They want
Do
it
you have a,
done by February. Yeah.
I'm sorry, do you have a ballparky guess, just to throw out a number, what the fabric would cost?
I do, except for I have a retail amount. And he's gonna come back with a better, the man at the upholstery shop, because he's got a source to get
Got a guy,
Sunbrella.
he knows a guy.
It's got a
don't
guy on
have-
the inside.
I don't have a wholesale access for something like that. I do for a lot of other things. But right now, I'm looking at roughly $5,000
Okay.
for retail price. But for wholesale price, it's gonna be a little more than 50% of that. We'll call it 60%.
Just to be clear, the price you quoted per cushion includes materials and labor, right?
Right.
Got it.
So, we have,
So, cheap labor.
you know, it's a lot of money that we have to raise. So, basically, what I've done is, at this point, is the research, done a little outreach in terms of interest, and I'm wondering if anyone wants me to go any further, and then reach out and like get some really specifics. It would mean that it would be great if Dave, you and I and Kim at least could meet and talk about this more specifically. Or if it's too much to try and do this year,
I
you
think,
postpone it till next year.
but I don't think it can, I think if we want it done, whether, regardless of it being done by February, I think if we're all in favor of moving forward, it doesn't matter what the timeline is. I think
Agreed.
we just
Right.
move forward.
You know, if we make it or not, who knows? But I agree with you, I would start. And if we don't make it, we keep going until we have them in hand, and then
Okay.
maybe they're in place for next year.
And
Great.
do you have a list of do you have people on the board at Camden Conference who, we'll discuss this after.
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
Okay. I will tell you that Kim brought this to the board at a board meeting last week, and it was unanimously agreed on that. They would
Great.
do whatever they needed to do in order to have this happen.
Okay, great, because
That's easy.
there might be.
Give us money.
And I actually, when I came to pick up the cushions, because they got dropped off here at the Town of Camden office, I ran into Peter Imber, and he said, oh, yeah, totally.
Well, that's great.
So,
Well done.
Yeah, it's
Really,
great. I
job.
think we should, I would feel comfortable if we put a, do not move forward if it's over 6,000 without another revisit. Because sometimes these things can edge up. And we'd obviously want to quote in writing from the prison before we said, here's.
yeah, my initial quote is in writing from him, but I need to revisit that based on feedback from you guys.
Got it. Yeah, that's
And
great.
The cost of the fabric is also, you know, prohibitive, so.
Maybe we can work on that.
Yep.
Well, but the cost of fabric is included in the 6,000.
No, it's, that, the cost of the fabric isn't, all the rest of the
Okay,
materials.
so we should, okay, yeah. Okay,
That's
there
how
we
we
go.
get 10,000.
That's what I was trying to get to, because it's not 30 bucks
That
times 200, it's
explains-
30 bucks.
$10,000 is
That explains the
like the
10,000.
very high point,
Okay.
Okay, so
and
that's
that's
what you're
because I'm dealing with like a retail figure in terms of yardage. But I can definitely, I'll get a new estimate. Good.
Yeah, I say let's take the next step. You know, learn a little bit more, gather some info, test the waters with Camden Conference. I think this is all good stuff. And we'll see as we go where we land. And I think
Sure.
When
in
you
the
have-
end, it'll just mean how much fundraising has to be done.
When you have real numbers and have an actual conversation with the Camden Conference, you'll be able to come back to us and say, it's gonna cost this, and they're gonna do this, and they need us to do this, and we just say, yes, we do it, or no, we don't. I mean,
Right.
it sounds pretty clear.
It also might be that it's perhaps at this time of the year, like leading into the holidays, leading into the winter, that it's very possible that it's too much for everybody to think about fundraising. Camden Conference seems to feel cool about it because this is their season, but it might be too much for,
So really
It
what we
might-
need is a hardcore number.
Right, that's the next
And
thing.
what their intentions are, and then we can make an actual decision.
Great.
Anybody parked right there?
Oh, okay. No, it sounds like mine, but I'm not parked there.
Okay.
Is there any history of fundraising for something like this? Just to-
Well, I think there's a history of fundraising.
Yeah, but I mean,
In a
for
general
this
sense.
amount, I mean,
Yeah. You know,
Okay.
for example, we, this was Carrie, my predecessor, successfully got a grant to rebuild the piano. That was like 30 grand. Got a grant to get a projector screen and projector. So there's a couple of examples of successful fundraising.
yeah, yes is a fine answer. It's, if, no, we've never tried to raise more than $500, then I would have worried, but
Right.
yes is cool.
All right, excellent, excellent work. Thank you, Kathleen, for doing that.
Sure.
Kristen, your
Yeah.
literary salon.
Can't even think, with that thing going on.
Let's go take a look and see.
Let's go throw a rock through them. That'll help.
And long grain for dinner.
It really isn't live.
Yeah.
It looks like my car, but I didn't drive. I wonder if my keys would work on it.
I think Roland already tried his.
Well, it sounded like my car, but it's not even the same kind of car, so the odds would work are about zero.
What he says? No.
If this is really
Nice try.
distracting, we can flip our order and I can talk about upcoming shows in hope that someone turns it off before you talk about the literary
I
salon.
mean, it doesn't, I'm gonna have trouble listening to you regardless, I mean, you know, it's just really annoying. Literary salons, so Dave and I have talked about, using the Tucker Room as a sort of spoken word performance space for small, events. And I think we've mentioned before that we're gonna kick this off in January. I and another poet and two musicians have put together a little performance of poetry and music. They're cellist, violinist, that we're gonna do together and sort of inaugurate the space. And then hoping to come up with some other, you know, maybe once a quarter, once every few months, doing a small similar type of event up there. You said it's like 40 to 45 people that it holds? Oh, my God.
Yes, depending on how we set up the room.
Yeah, so, you know, I think that could be fun for,
Why are you using the Tucker Room as opposed to the Blue Cafe?
because Dave wanted to utilize the space in an interesting way.
And I think it's a better fit for a literary salon.
I quite
You know, the
agree.
Blue Cafe has its own kind of personality, which
Oh, yeah.
works for that stuff. And I just thought it'd be nice to have something a little more elegant.
Agreed.
Do we have the date yet in January?
Yes, the 12th, I
Yeah,
believe,
we have the 12th on hold, which is a Sunday, and I think we're talking about like a
2 o'clock.
afternoon.
Cautious.
That's December 12th?
January.
Oh, January.
This is what I'm embarrassed to say, I'm trying to remember our conversation if we
You
talked
said doing
about.
some sort of Blue Cafe sort of deal, but I don't know what we actually do for Blue Cafe.
It's free and we accept donations. And we pay performers an honorarium out of the Community Arts Fund. So one way to do it is exactly that. And something we can talk about is, because it's a smaller space, is there a way, you know, when you sell tickets, at least you sort of have a control over how many people come in. So that's something to think about. Or do we just, people come in until it's full and then we say, we're sorry, we're full?
And are they going to be chairs or are they going to be standing room?
Chairs
Okay.
is what I'm envisioning.
Oh, absolutely,
I
yeah,
mean,
I
I
can't
would,
imagine
in my mind, if this
standing.
were the Tucker Room and that was the windows on Elm Street, I see the performers there. with rows of chairs and the door to the room here. And I think we talked about, we could clear out the alcove part and do coffee and water and little biscuits, I mean, whatever, we could do that and have
Yeah.
a donation thing, or, I hadn't thought it all that far through, but that's an option.
Yeah, so that's sort of as far as we've gotten with it. Some of the other ideas I've had for the future, but haven't really followed up on them yet. Mostly kind of waiting to see how this one really plays out, so we could say to people, oh, it's, you know, the benefits of doing it. One of my ideas, because my husband is a crime novelist, having some sort of crime noir
I
sort
think that'd be
of
fun.
reading.
You mean enacting out, do you mean?
No, I mean, I'm a reading.
Oh, just a
Yeah.
reading?
Yeah, yeah. Just a reading.
Well, he did that at the Book Cafe, right? He read from his book, the latest
Yeah,
book
yeah,
at the Book
Yeah,
Cafe.
he did. But I wasn't thinking just him. I was thinking we could
Right.
probably get, you know, one or two other people to read things too. Liz Hand, for example, has a new book out that's kind of noir, creepy, mystery. I haven't talked to her about it at all, but
She knows now.
she knows now, because I'm sure
If
she's
she's
watching,
watching
she's
TV.
glued to her
That's right,
TV.
she's all over it.
Liz, if you're here, if you're out there, let me know what you think. Another thought I had was that maybe we could do something in combination with, hello.
Hi.
Something in combination with the Malay Festival. If they continue to do a Malay Festival in Rockland, we could have a Malay associated
A
event.
satellite,
Yeah, that we might work on with them. But we can't do anything that's too big because we've only got
Yeah.
40-something chairs. So it's not like I'm gonna call up, you know, Tess Gerritsen and say, hey, you know, because we'd get too many people. So they've got to be kind of low-key,
right,
maybe
and-
niche
yep,
type
intimate.
events.
Only, would you allow for that, or not necessarily? Yeah, it could
I
happen.
would, and I mean, and this is sort of an issue that comes up at the Blue Cafe, is like, when
Yeah.
is,
Too
when you
much.
cross that invisible line between full and too full. And it's you just make a call, I think.
That's your job.
Right.
But it sounds like you could, if you get this off the ground, that you could maybe once or twice a year use the big room and have bigger names or more names and do, I mean, under the branding of that might be
Yeah.
great.
That might be a good way to start it.
Yeah.
And build an audience for it too.
Absolutely.
Yeah, there's all sorts of things.
Yeah,
I
and
mean,
then there's-
there could be an end of year sort of best of, I mean, whatever, but
Yeah.
certainly the auditorium
And there's
is
always
available.
National Poetry Month in April, as you know.
Yep.
It's the only time we ever get asked to read, so,
Right?
so, yeah.
What would you want to call it? If you have any thoughts, or, I mean, we have a little time to figure it out, but,
I have no thoughts.
because that's helpful just in a marketing way, if we could.
Your suggestion was calling it like Vincent's Salon. That was one of your early
Oh, yeah.
suggestions. And I've been kind of thinking it as sort
It's
of
so
like,
much fun to have a bad memory, everything's new.
what a great idea I had.
Great idea. I wish I thought,
Vincent as in Edna Sig?
Yes, because
Right.
that's the name she went by.
you know, hometown girl makes good.
Yeah.
I mean, I like the salon idea. I don't know if I'm sold.
I
on
like the
Vincent
literary
part, but I
salon.
like the
Yeah, me
literary
too.
salon.
Salon.
Yeah,
Yeah,
It
I mean,
tells
that
what it
sounds,
is.
It does.
that's
know.
true.
If you do
People are like,
Vincent's
who's
Salon,
Vincent?
that might be really anticipating.
Well, if you think that, I mean, literary salon to me is great because I think you immediately sort of get a vision for what it is.
Yeah,
If you don't think
definitely.
it needs any more descriptor than that, as far as being in Camden or the Opera House or anything else, then,
I like it.
No, I think
It
that's
works for
fine.
me.
all in favor?
Yes, all in favor?
Done.
Good.
Well, that's great, because short is good. Not your report, the name.
I'm done with my report too.
I don't think we, you really have to do it as leader, decide whether it's gonna be free with donations or charged. You need to figure that out before
We
we.
do, and we need to figure out how do the artists get compensated.
Right.
Well, because you're gonna, we're gonna have to increase funding for the Community Arts Fund.
Yep.
If we add these programs on that are also free, or do we find a way to,
Yeah.
charge a small fee for something like this, it's, $10 or something like that?
$10, people won't go to a poetry reading.
No.
I was going to say
I can tell
five.
you that right
I
now.
almost think that.
They hardly go when it's free,
Psychically,
so.
and I'm gonna hear what you say, Rosanna, that you're almost better off to make it free and accept donations, that people may be more generous donations than they would have been with an admission.
And you'll
Okay.
come out the
I
same
don't
in the
know.
end.
Okay.
Maybe.
Then we
And,
just
and it has the advantage of having a feel-good factor where you say, here's another free community thing paid for by your donation to the, I mean, there's that.
So when that goes out this year, because we're gonna be sending those out soon, right?
Correct, yeah.
We're gonna add this to it so that people see that we've got another benefit.
We certainly could, because that would mean that we're saying you support the Blue Cafe, you support community thank you films, you support the literary salon,
Yeah.
you support, I mean, those would be the three big ones, but that's pretty good.
I think that
I
that's,
think.
I think that's what's gonna sell it, then that makes sense if we make sure that we add that to the Community Arts Fund information that we're sending out when we send out our letter asking for money.
When you send that out, you're starting to have some things that people know
Yeah.
and appreciate. And there's a reason to, I have a reason, it's not just going into some,
No,
town
they know
coffer.
they know what they're
Right.
paying for, or what they're giving their donation for.
Right. So I guess the notion of what do we pay the artists, we don't have to decide, and it may vary from night to night depending on, for example, when we started the Blue Cafe, it was a fairly modest thing, but sometimes in order to get people, we had to offer them a little more, like Hiroya Sakamoto. We had started off offering people $150 or something, well, we paid him $300, and I think it was worth it. But that was a special case. So it may be the same thing where you start with kind of a modest baseline, and it's not about what they're worth, it's about just us saying thank you and giving them a symbolic.
In the donation.
Yeah, I mean, the 3 people I am doing this first event with are traveling up to 2 hours more
So you
than
gotta make
one's
it worth
coming
their
from
while.
Millinocket, so.
Yeah.
So I want to make sure they've got enough that they could, pay for their gas and dinner, since
Yep.
it's quite a trek for them, but.
I thought we might have enough talent locally.
We have a lot of talent locally.
What about,
Well, we,
Just to finish a thought, I mean, certainly with the Blue Cafe, my goal is to try and highlight folks that you otherwise wouldn't see.
Right.
Not someone that you would see at the library or at the farmer's market, or, they're all wonderful, but it's nice to be able to say, this is something that you wouldn't otherwise see. So I think that's what you're kind of describing.
right. And with regards to this one in January, I am the local tie. The
Right.
other 3 are 3 people I perform with, but it is local.
if you're looking for providing meals as well, can that be something that can be donated by local restaurants?
Yes,
Can that make a deal where they get,
an honorarium plus a gift card to a restaurant.
Yes, yeah,
is that what?
yes, that's what I was
If we can get the
thinking, gift
restaurants
card.
to contribute, then there's less costs involved.
And they can be a sponsor.
Right.
Yes.
I don't know enough about this space in the sense that would donations, like musicians, there's kind of like a certain kind of expectation of.
Yep.
If you get me to show up, it's at least X amount. With this, with authors, like, could the donations go to them? Or does it have to be, we're paying you your quote-unquote performance fee in order to make it worth their while to perform? Some of them,
I think it's more the second thing you said, and it's a bit of a wash because the donations, in a way, sort of pay them.
sure,
But in other words, if I'm hearing you correctly, it's probably easier to get people to come if you say, here's your sort of guaranteed honorarium, and then it's on us to make that up in donations by convincing folks that it's a good thing to do. Which is kind of the Blue Cafe model. They know, each performer knows what they're gonna get
sure.
as part of the agreement.
And the donations just offset that.
Right, and sometimes the donations are great and come close to paying for it, and sometimes not.
Even this week, you came close. You raised over $200 in donations.
Well, thanks go to the mayor of Blueville, who really let folks know.
And we had no strays wandering around with hats. The last show, we had somebody walking around looking.
That was a friend of Mariana's,
Yeah,
yeah.
which
She was,
we had a little run
A
in.
well-intentioned person.
Well, I said we're
was
paying
collecting
her,
on
and-
behalf of the musician, not knowing that we'd already paid the musician, so we got hardly any donations, we lost money.
Oh, that's odd.
And it was just a misunderstanding, but it's like, that, the lesson in that was, okay, we gotta really be clear,
Yeah.
so folks understand our model.
right.
Odd thing to do without checking first.
Well, so many places ask for donations for the musicians, so.
Yeah, I mean, it's an easy
It's,
to get mixed up.
It's a common.
But I mean, in this case, Matt did a good job of saying, this is how this works. When you donate this to the Community Arts Fund, it pays for things like this and, you know, free movies and.
it's nice to be able to fundraiser for it, but I was just at a conference, none of the speakers are paid to speak. All of the authors are there because they're promoting, because that's part of what they have to do as an author in order to get the awareness out. So that's why I was curious about,
Sure.
kind of if it's just the expectations.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think in a bigger conference, the exposure and the potential book sales are more appealing. In a room full of 40 people, not so much.
When you're a poet in a room full of 40 people, yeah, not so much.
I think you want to pay the people. It's a nice message.
Yep, we just have to figure out just what that means, and we can, and we have, you know, a little while to figure that out. But I think it's a great idea, and I just picture it being another nice ingredient in what we offer. And I feel like there's a little niche for it. I know that libraries and bookstores do some stuff, but
Not as much as you would think it.
Not as much as you would think.
Considering the literary talent we have
Yep.
in the general Mid-Coast area.
And I think this is an opportunity to do something that, and I'm not even sure what it means yet, but takes on its own personality.
Well, and it's another dimension for this building,
Right.
like Blue Cafe
Yeah.
and the other things, so.
Yeah, I like that it adds to our, you know, dance, theater, music,
Yep.
film,
Adds to the repertoire.
you know, it's, exactly.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Dave.
So I'm just going to sort of buzz over upcoming shows and ideas because I think these are things that have been mentioned. So the next show we have is David Mallet with a singer-songwriter named Caroline Cotter, and we are going to start really pushing that. It's off to a good start sales-wise, but it's going to be a wonderful show, I think. Well-loved Maine singer-songwriter. On Armistice Day, we have They Shall Not Grow Old, which I really want to let folks know. This is part of our free community thank you films, and I think it's going to be powerful and wonderful. After that is Irish Christmas with Lunasa. Sold out last year, and a lot of folks had said they had friends who wanted to come but didn't get tickets, so I'm really hoping that that will carry through, and we're gonna push it. And
This is in the main house.
correct, this is in the
Yes,
theater, yep.
yes.
Then in the new year, our first Maine Made Music concert is going to feature Wayne Delano Quartet. So it's going to be a little different. Typically, they've been sort of rock shows in one form or another, and this is going to be a jazz show. So it's going to be Wayne Delano Quartet with some new compositions, and the opener is going to be Tom, help me, Luther, solo piano, and he's a very talented guy.
Any connection with Blue Cafe on any, or not Blue Cafe, with Jazz Fest on any of that?
Well, yeah, I mean, I had an hour conversation with Wayne yesterday, who tells me how hard he's working for the January thing. And Tom has been on the committee on and off for years. He had some health problems, and he's now doing something really kind of unique as a performer. Although for the main stage, he'll just do solo piano.
He will do that,
As
the
opposed-
traditional, for the Blue Cafe in the summer, he's
gonna
doing
do
this
the-
quadraphonic electronic thing, which is going to be neat.
So yeah, they're, yes, in contact with both of them. and-
But to answer your question, we're listing Jazz in June as a sponsor.
Okay, that's what I wanted to know, how we're marketing Jazz in
Right,
June.
so we're going to get the
Okay.
Jazz in June logo on the posters, and even though it's just, you know, it's just a way to connect them in people's
Excellent.
perception.
Yep, I just wanted to make sure we were making that connection.
Yep. For Toboggan Weekend, Toboggan National's Rustic Overtones, which I think is going to be a blast. They are a sort of a rock band with a horn section. They have a long history in Maine. They're really good. And so I think that can be a good night. I've reached out to a local band called Drive By Todd to be the opener, which I think will be a nice local flavor. Then in March, Very Hungry Caterpillar, touring theatrical show out of Canada. We are really going to pitch this to families with kids. We're pricing it for families with kids. The library's going to work with us. Owl and Turtle is going to sell books. They're coming on board as a sponsor. So we're really going to try and make this a real kid book-centric
Tell me
event.
again, how would you describe this?
It's an interesting, it's a theatrical play, but it's done in blacklight. So the actors are all, you don't see them, but the actual characters are sort of fluorescent and appear to float in the stage. So it's neat, it's fun, and it's, it's not super high-tech, but it's a little bit magical.
Kids will find it really cool.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be great, and they're a really acclaimed theatrical group, and the credit for this goes to Shannon Herring, who used to be on the committee. This was her idea. She said, reach out to the Mermaid Theater. So, thank you, Shannon. That's where this began a while ago.
And we're gonna make sure that we're sending that information out to all the preschools, elementary schools in the area.
Yep, we are gonna cast a wide net, so that is gonna be Dagny at her very best. Then in April, our next Maine Made Music show is the Oshima Brothers. And they, you probably know them, local guys who are just doing great. So that's gonna, I think, draw really well. They are playing with a string quartet, the Halcyon Quartet. The woman who's kind of the leader of the quartet has played on some of their recordings, and so there's a nice kind of synergy. And it'll be, in a general sense, not unlike when Sarah Halley Richardson played with a string quartet. It's a nice sort of melding of different influences. That's April. Coming back in the summer, A Day in the Life Beatles tribute, Morgan Cates. This is a show that has just done great every time he's done it. He's a local guy. He started doing it, I think he was still in high school.
He was.
He is now living in Boston, working at the Boston Opera House.
Yes.
Doing great. But he is going to sort of
Manager.
recreate this for one night in July.
Oh.
It's a sort of a different, it's a door split we're going to do with him. In the past, it was a rental, which made it a little hard for him, so we're doing a door split. It's kind of a 65-35, 65 to him. So I think people will get excited about that, and I think that is a show that can actually do okay in the summer, whereas some don't. I think that one will.
Yeah.
So that'll be great. Next Windjammer Festival is Tom Rush, which I think was an idea that came from Mark and Matt primarily, and I think that will do well in our kind of singer-songwriter series. Then in the fall, October, I think it's October 17th, the Campbell Brothers, which I'm really psyched about. I think I sent you guys a link. They are from Syracuse. They are a family gospel band with
They're amazing.
2 killer pedal steel players.
Yep.
They are another, in the same way, they don't sound like them, but in the same way that Ranky Tanky was a way to bring something sort of fresh and new to this area, I feel like they're gonna be like that. It's just not something you see around here, and they're really good, so excited about that. Lynn Dilly's Illusionist is coming in November. She
great.
is kind of a big stage, large props, very showy, very fun. Did well last time she was here, which was, 2015. So that'll do well. I'm going to stop there. We have a lot of kind of cool Blue Cafe things lined up. And I think I've already mentioned them, so I won't go down the list. But a good season that kind of continues in the tradition, and I have a couple other ones to slot in. one thing I want to end with is SIF has moved their dates. I heard from Ben Fowley last week, and I don't understand why, but something in the land of film film festivals made them kind of have to do this. You know, traditionally, they've been a September phenomena. In 2020, it's going to be the first week in October. It's going to be September 30th, and then October 1,
They
2,
were right on top of
3,
the
4.
Toronto International Film Festival this year, so they, yeah.
They kind of had to do that, which is fine. We were able to move some things around. We moved the Glenn Jenks show. He was very gracious off, and so it all works. It makes October a pretty rich month for us, which is fine. What it does, though, is it empties up a big space in September, which is a great season for us. Sure. So I don't know what to do about it. I don't have to know right now, but
Well, just,
put it in the back of your heads.
just looking at this lineup, I think you need a woman performer in there somewhere.
Of what style or who does what.
I don't think it matters. It's just, these are, it's, except for the illusionist, everything on here is a male performer.
What about somebody was talking to me today about, there's a show going around, and I think the tour will be done. Roseanne Cash is going out with, guitar player, great guitar player in the world.
Crowell? No.
No, I just missed it. Ry Cooter.
Ry Cooter.
It's 25,000.
Oh, okay.
My brother, I was just down on my little tour of Nashville and Fall River, two great cities, and we checked it out because they wanted to book it. And they also only did 6 dates.
I know, but Roseanne is going on a lot, so maybe somebody, even without, maybe somebody like Roseanne Cash.
Yeah.
We've had success with female country players here in the
Well-
past, and we don't have any country people.
You know who I just was emailing back and forth with was Susie Bogus, who did well here, always does well here. And what I like about her, aside from the fact that she's really good and she's super professional and great to work with, is she pulls in a different audience than we typically get. When she played here last, I just saw faces that I don't typically see because they're country-ish.
And I think that's a world that we missed a little bit, so, we've had for a while.
So, yeah, so thank you for pointing that out, and let me,
I don't normally look for that kind of
Yeah.
thing, but I just happened to realize, I'm like, oh, brothers, and everybody's a guy here.
fair enough. That could be a win-win, because she's done well. She's interesting. They rent the place. It's not an opera house production when they come here. And they do their own promotion, and they're super good at it, and they come self-contained, and I don't really care the manner in which they come. I just think they're a nice addition to the season, so let me,
Check on Roseanne Cash, because she tours with her husband, John Jennings, who was Mary Chapin Carpenter's original guitar player, by the way.
oh, sure, I remember.
And I saw him in London last year, and it was a great show. It's very intimate, and they live in New York, which means,
Yeah, right now, her tour goes up through April, because I was checking her thing today, but that might be a really cool show to have, something
Roseanne
different.
Cash.
Where?
She was just one of my friends on Facebook.
She was in Portland, wasn't she?
Just
possibly,
there.
yeah.
Just
She
recently.
hasn't been up here.
Like 3 days ago,
Yeah,
yeah.
that would be a banana show.
The 3 women.
It would be a
You
great.
would sell out like right
At
away.
the Strand every year?
Oh.
I haven't seen them, I know who you're talking about, I haven't seen them.
There's also a really hot 5-piece women bluegrass band with a lady named Molly Tuttle, who is, she's older now, she's probably 18 now. When she was 13, she won Bluegrass Picker of the world. And it's an all-woman bluegrass band, which I'll try to get you the name of.
Oh, that'd be so fun.
There was a little display in the Hall of Fame in Nashville, Country Music Hall of Fame, about them, and they're touring. I think it's really about how you know, again, who you can hit,
Yeah.
who's on the road and in this area.
Right. Cool. Great ideas, and any other ideas, please funnel them to me.
Did Dagny give you any information on Holly Clough? She's a...
Yep.
Oh, good show.
Yep.
Okay. Jolly good.
Okay, we good, Dave?
We're good.
Okay. Matt?
Okay, sure, Mark leaves, I feel insulted. I'm going to pass these around, take one and pass it on, take 6 and pass it on. This is our sponsorship donation first solicitation that's going out. I'm actually going out to the local banks in the next 2 weeks, but we're also looking for individual donations and sponsorships. There's a chart inside on in terms of who, different levels of sponsorship. Rosanna has developed a little program so we can keep track of who we solicit and who we don't solicit, which we will get that hooked up, Rosanna. So here's where we're at. It's all good news. It's almost too good news. In fact, I just got an email from Alexa Tarantino, speaking of women, a great sax player who wants to play but needs us to pay her airfare, and we're negotiating because we don't typically do that. Anyway, the way it looks now, June 11th through the 14th, 2020, a Thursday night, there'll be a dance at the Snow Bowl, hopefully with the right track, but I can't commit them because we haven't really talked about it yet. But obviously, $15, try to get the locals, but people who come in for the weekend will have something to do on Thursday night. On Friday, we're still talking about possibly an educational piece. It's difficult, particularly in 2020, because I understand the middle school will be out because they're moving to the new building, and it's also graduation at the high school. So, but, you know, there's musicians that aren't graduating and aren't in middle school or would be interested. So we're going to, and there's grants available, and we're going to talk to Youth Arts about that. Friday evening from 5 to 7, we will have an early Blue Cafe on the 3rd floor. Dave has booked a band called Shades of Blue.
New Shades of Blue.
New Shades of Blue. Hopefully Josh will do cocktails, and we're talking about some foods, finger foods of some kind as well, just to make it a little different for this. And then our first feature show Friday night in the Opera House. We have booked this guy named Harry Allen. Look him up. He's a great, well-known tenor sax player. And his piano player, Mike Renzi, was Tony Bennett and Mel Torme's musical director for years. Amazing talent on piano and a great rhythm section. So they're booked. And again, we have more opportunity to book. We've got 3 acts that want to fill that second slot. And so we'll get that locked. So that's Friday night. Saturday afternoon, Jazz on the Hillside at the Snow Bowl. We're going to have 4 acts. Haven't signed anybody yet, trying not to duplicate exactly last year, but we'll probably, I think I'm hoping the first set will be the Mid-Coast Music Academy putting together a jazz act to open the afternoon, which is always good, and I'm trying to work more closely with them anyway. But we have a guy named Noah Fishman from Belfast who showed interest in playing. A little expensive right now. We have a quintet from Miami, Florida that wants to play. It's actually cheaper than Noah Fishman. We've got Whitehead Dean. We've got a lot of opportunity, and Wayne Delano and I talked about it. Maybe he would headline that afternoon. So a lot going on there. And then Saturday night, our feature show is the Brubeck Brothers. They are booked. They are going to be playing the 50th anniversary of their father's famous album, Time Out. And that we hope that's a sellout. We anticipate that to be a sellout.
Yes.
The opening for them is a guy named Frank Vignola, the Frank Vignola Hot Jazz Trio. Frank, 2 guitars and an upright bass. Frank is a very well-known jazz guitar player from New York. Puts on an amazing show, a lot of Django Reinhardt influence, but he does jazz standards. It's something to see these 2 guitar players go at each other as they're doing like dance steps. Very fun. They're both from Long Island, tell really bad jokes, but very funny, very entertaining. And then that's our feature show Saturday night, and then on Sunday, working with the library to have a free show in the afternoon in the amphitheater, and working with, right now, the Rotary to have a blueberry pancake breakfast with jazz at the Snow Bowl Sunday morning. And so we also have a great resource who's going to join the Jazz in June committee, a guy named Jim McNeely he lives in Owl's Head, and he played piano with Stan Getz for many, many years. He's I didn't know him. My brother, when I mentioned the name, said, "Oh my God, Jim McNeely." He's like, he's the guy in jazz circles that's played with everybody. And he said, "Oh yeah, I'll get Rufus Reed, one of famous jazz bass player. I'll bring him up, and I'll get Adam Nussbaum on drums." And these are people that in the jazz circles are huge. And right now he's reasonable. We just don't really have a slot for him, so we're working on that. Right now, just to end up, and if you can raise money in any sense, send it to Dave. He'll promise to put it in the account. Right now, we're looking at this for ticket prices. We're going to have an $80 all-access pass that gets you into all these shows on the weekend, including the free ones. We're going to have a $40 feature show for the Brubeck Brothers, which was a little less than last year, but again, the goal is to sell this out and I wouldn't say scalp tickets on the street, but we hope to sell it out. $30 for the Friday night feature show, a little less to give people an option. $20 for Jazz on the Hillside, the 4 or 5 acts on Saturday afternoon. $15 for the dance, and then we have a couple free events as well. So, to be determined. I'd love to have the Schooners do a cocktail jazz cruise one night. So we'll talk to the Schooners folks. And there's a few other ideas in there that we're mulling over. Again, the idea is to sell it out, make money, but not get it too big. Because the most feedback we had last year, all positive, was we love the size of this. We love that there's not long lines. We love that we can park at the Snow Bowl and not have to worry about walking a half a mile.
Yeah.
I mean, people from out of town said, this is really so relaxing and so nice that, so anyway, that's my Jazz in June. We've got 8 months to go. David and his team have been amazing. My wife is re-energized to get back on she's going to come see Dagny next week. They're going to get the website up and get we're going to start selling the laminated passes, the all-access passes, mid-November. The idea that they could make great Christmas gifts for people. And then we'll sell individual show tickets probably starting in February, mid to late February. So, but obviously the more all-access passes, it gives us a jump start on the money. We need to raise somewhere around $10,000 in sponsors and donations to make it really feel good. We'd like to have money in the coffers to start next year, and we'd also like to donate some money to Youth Arts and/or Midcoast Music Academy to continue to support youth in jazz, so.
Wow. Wow.
Wish you'd
Great
get
stuff,
it.
Matt.
Awesome, thank you, Matt.
Good, thank you.
Awesome.
Absolutely.
And I have my reusable straw.
Is there any new business that we need to, or that anybody would like to discuss, bring up?
I can just mention one thing. I've been working with Juniper to find out what technical upgrades she would like to have in the budget for the next year. And she's come up with a list which works out to about $10,000. And I've talked to Audra about that, and Audra's, and talked to a couple of the select board people about it. So Audra said, may be able to find it in the budget even before we have to go to the budget committee. There may be some money left over from this year. But I'm very positive that we can, again, like we did last year, up the technical qualities of the big room to make it even a better place for artists, including, I think, a digital soundboard was one of the big things.
Yeah. And thank you so much for being such a good advocate for us. It will raise us up a notch, and in some ways it'll save money because we won't have to rent so much. And I don't want to steal Juniper's thunder, but I know that unofficially, I think SIF, for example, would be very happy because it's a piece that they've had to rent in the past. So I think there's a number of benefits. So thank you, Mark. It'll be a great improvement to make whenever we get to it.
Which brings me to my next question. It just occurred to me. Do you have new bathrooms scheduled for the third floor yet? Construction?
Only in a general sense. I mean, January is the target date. I'm getting with Chris Fassel. He has the plans ready, but we have to do the whole process of putting it out to bid. And
Okay, yeah, because it's already getting late to find people to do the work at that point.
Yeah. So, yeah.
All right, anything else? Okay,
Motion to adjourn?
motion to adjourn.
A second the motion.
All in favor? Great.
Thank you so much,
Thank you for
everybody,
coming out,
appreciate it.
guys.
Well done, wow. With you.
No, I have some upstairs, thank you so much. Mike, this one just
Okay, my
gave
dear.
up the ghost.
All right.
We can shut out all our mics too.
Can I give that to you?
You know what, we're gonna give it to Dave because